Hi, Chris. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
You're one of the people who took the initiative for the ETTEC certificate. I can already spoil that it has to do something with road hands and safety, but give us some context. What is it precisely, and why was there a need for such a certificate?
Yeah. In fact, the idea started years ago when I had a student that had a bachelor degree from Rits in Belgium and a master's degree from Royal Welsh College. And she wasn't allowed to work on stage in Germany because she couldn't prove that she was working safe. That was the initial thought came there. And then we started discussing with people in different countries. And we felt very strongly the need of a basic certificate about safety for the theater and event industry. And the reason for that is, okay, you can have people that do not a pretty good job. That's sometimes problematic, but it's not dramatic. While if somebody is not working safe, he endangers his colleagues, he endangers the event itself, the equipment, and that's what we want to avoid. So you want to be sure that somebody that is next to you is working safe. That was the basic idea from that. We started looking into the European ESCO system, the competence system, and we kind of created 10 competences that are proving that you have basic safety. We're not talking about the safety on higher levels, rigging and that type of stuff, but we're really talking about taking care of yourself, taking care of your colleagues, working at height, ergonomics, fire safety.
That are things like having a harness on and things like that, or how do I
Yes.
need to?
So it's basically all the skills that everybody that is working in a stage environment or an event environment should have. So that includes, of course, your personal protection equipment. That includes almost everything that we all do all day, but sometimes do pretty wrong, to be honest.
Is that still a big problem in our industry?
Well, if you scroll Facebook, you see daily examples.
Yeah, there are a lot of amusing Facebook groups with good examples on why this certificate is needed. You're totally right about that.
No, but that's absolutely true. And sometimes it's because people just don't know or don't have the practice, because what we do is very much competence based. A lot of people have had a training and they have a nice certificate that says you were physically there in the classroom when somebody was telling something. But it is not measured and it's purely based on theory. And the core of what we want to do is look at it in practice. If you say you can work safe on height, I want to see you go up a ladder and do something there. That's the core thing. And the strange thing is that sometimes people that are very smart and are very good students fail in the practical test, while people that have a lot of difficulty with understanding theory are working perfectly safe.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we want.
And it's the last thing that counts.
Yeah. I always say if you have a fire, what do you want? Do you want somebody that knows all the fire classes? Or do you want somebody that is able to extinguish the fire?
Yeah.
And of course, to extinguish the fire, you have to know the fire classes. But the other way around, it doesn't work. And that's basically the concept behind it.
Another challenge, we were talking just before we started recording, we had a little chat. And another challenge I think you are trying to solve is we are working in a pan-European context. And possibly there is a certificate in some country, but how do you know if you're in another country what to count on and to be 100% sure that people are living up to those levels of expertise? Part of the idea is also to have something pan-European. So, and especially with stagehands, if they're on tour, they go to all those countries. How can you know that you have the right person on the right spot? But I think you went quite far in how to create that setup, how to create those policies to make sure that that's the case. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
The problem is that education is a responsibility of countries and not of Europe. So it's technically, it would be impossible to have a European certificate. So the welders industry gave us a nice example on how they dealt with that, because you have welders certificates that are worldwide. And basically what they do is, if I deliver a certificate in Belgium, it is also signed off by all my other colleagues in the different countries that also have an assessment center. So the way we organize that is we created a non-profit organization which is called ETTEC, and that gathers all the assessment centers together, and they look into the quality of the assessment in the other countries also. So, and that ensures you that there is not a conflict of interest between, on one hand, you do test and you have to make, well, you don't have to make money, but at least you have to break even. And imagine there is 12 people and 11 would fail. The tendency to kind of lower a little bit the quality would be very high. And because we test each other and because we all have an interest that the quality stays high, we avoid that problem. That is one thing. A second thing is that the assessors get an assessor training in their local centers, but they are accredited by the international organization. And that makes them independent from the center. So in that way, they can't be pushed by a center to change things or to lower things. The test we developed in the ETTEC project is a standardized test. So it's a simulated environment where you have to load and unload the truck. You have to build up some spotlights on a truss. You have to put some risers. You have to clean something. This covers basically these 10 competencies. There's all like little smart elements in that where we can see that you really are able to work safe. And if you do this test in Belgium, or you do that in Sweden, or in Germany, or in the Netherlands, or in Finland, you should get exactly the same test, and the result should be the same. So that's a quite high guarantee that if you have somebody from another country with a certificate, first of all, it's guaranteed by your own local center, but you also can be quite sure about the quality of measurement. On top of that, assessors are not allowed to assess people they have trained or they have worked with before. So that also guarantees a high level of objectivity.
Yeah. I also heard, and I'm not 100% sure that I heard correctly, is that there are already certain countries who also start to recognize the certificate, and I thought it was Belgium.
Yeah. What happened in Belgium is at one moment they realized that internal safety training for what they call mobile building sites and events in the outside are part of mobile building sites, that internal certification by the employer didn't give enough guarantee, especially because you work with hundreds of sub-employers and so on, and people where you're not completely sure where they come from. So they decided you need to have an external certificate. And in Belgium, they certified the safety passport as valid for this type of things. And my guess is that will go on in the rest of Europe,
in other
also
countries
in the
as well. It makes sense, eh? And I also believe that for an event organizer or even an event business, that it has tremendous value to have people working for you who are certified, that you can also at least say that you did whatever you could to make sure your people work on a safe level, because those organizers, they will require it.
Yeah, I think in the future that will get more and more. The sad thing is that the reason often why they require it is not because they want to have a safer environment, but to cover their liability. That's the reality we are living in. I'm not really happy with that.
But if the result is a safer event, nevertheless, that's a good outcome, I think.
No, that's true. But sometimes it gives kind of odd situations.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But anyway, I think it's a good, not only for the employer, but also if I'm working on stage with someone, I like to know that he has the basic safety skills. that I don't have to look the whole time, whatever you, that's hardly possible in an event situation. Because what we do in events is more complex safety-wise than you would expect. And I always compare it with the cookie factory. There that they put the white line somewhere, and if you don't cross the white line, you're safe. And we do the same thing, except that the white line moves every 30 seconds to another place. So that makes that people need kind of a good insight of safety and a good understanding, more than just having only the practical skills. They have to be able to evaluate at all times where there are risks or so on. So in that sense, we are a rather specific sector, because by definition we make things new. We make new things.
Yeah.
We make things that never happened before. Otherwise, it would become very boring what we are doing.
That's true. And another factor in our industry is sometimes the insane deadlines there are. Because, yeah, if the cookie's not ready, you make it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if you have a concert this evening,
Yeah.
show must go on. And if you're late or behind on schedule, you need to finish.
Yeah.
So that's also something to keep in mind. You work under pressure, and then those basics in safety are really essential, I think.
Yeah, it really has to be a routine, a habit. It's not like you have the time to look up stuff or so on. No, if you're working
with your checkbook.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be in some industries they do that, but that's completely impossible, because it has to be ready. And so that means that people need a high level of understanding, but also a high level of routine. And one of the things we see is people that work for a very long time in kind of a structured environment, like a cultural center. When you put them in another situation, sometimes they get lost, because they get the routine of doing things always the same time. While in health and safety, you should be able to work in whatever environment and still keep these basic safety skills.
Yeah, and that practicality about safety, what you're talking about now, that's also included in how you perceived the training, because a lot of safety trainings are highly theoretical, or even the practical part is so standardized that it's not even looking close to the real stuff. But what I hear here between the lines is that is exactly what you wanted to do different.
Yeah. So what we did in this European project is we developed a course of 10 chapters, 10 competences, 10 chapters. The first part is always how do you need to do stuff, the practical thing, and then you get some theoretical chapters. What happened now is, with money from the Flemish government, the European Social Fund, the Belgium Social Fund, Podiumkunsten, they digitized all our content.
Yeah.
And it's open for everyone. So everyone that wants can do can go through this digital platform, and it has questions after every chapter. And then you at least
that's even free, or?
Yes, that part is free.
Okay.
Because well, ideally everything about safety should be free, but the reality is that the moment we have to work for it, somebody
needs to pay.
So all the manuals are made that are made in the project are open source anyway. The digital platform is open source. The moment you want to be tested or be trained, that's a different story, because there you need manpower to do so. And then there is different ways of doing the training. A lot of people do this in-house, in their own theater, and they have somebody coaching them. In Finland, they did a lot of experiments where, for example, to retrain their experienced people, to take one chapter a month and put that in their toolbox box talks every day. So they had 1 month with a real focus on one element, and then they got on to the next month and so on. They also did short trainings in Metropolia, the school, but they also did in-house training. In an ideal situation, you would have in an organization somebody that takes care of the training part, because you really need the physical environment for that. And yeah, the more that changes, the better. What we do in Belgium and the Netherlands, it's now part of the curricula of the secondary schools and of the higher education.
Okay.
So in fact, we didn't need to do so much about that, because basics, of course, if you teach theater technology, you also teach safety.
Yeah.
But they standardized it a little bit so that it fits in what they are doing now. And I think from next year on, they will also do all the tests, so everybody would get a certificate. In the Netherlands, they created a new curriculum for all the schools together. There it's in there. In Finland, it's in the curriculum. And in Sweden, we still have to make the official match, but it's 99% because they were partner in writing it. So the 99% of that will also be there, but they're still working on how to do the testing procedures.
Yeah. I can imagine if you're watching now and you're an event technician and say, damn, I didn't had that course in college and I want to do it, because I think many of those people will also see the value. Like you said, you want to know that the colleague who's working next to you also is certified. So you also need to be certified yourself. What kind of time investment is needed to get a certificate, if you take into account that you need to study a little bit, then to the exam?
It's difficult to say because it depends a little bit from person to person. We try to make the chapters as well in the paper version as in the digital version. We make them more or less the length of a truck drive to a job, or the waiting time between two changeovers in a theater. So ideally, you would be able to do that in what you could call waste time.
Yeah.
That will be one part. I must say, experienced people go pretty fast over it. And then you have to calculate doing the practical test. The test itself takes more or less 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because it's a simulated environment, so you really have to physically do stuff. The test takes more or less 2 hours, but then you also have real proof of that, what you're able to do.
Yeah, makes sense. Chris, I think it's a very good initiative, and I'm very happy that we could spend some time talking about it and also bringing out the word to the working field that this is something new and this is something important for our industry. So thank you for taking the initiative and thank you for coming over to explain it to us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you at home, thank you for watching our show. I hope to see you next week.